The Galactic Council had long dismissed humanity as a backwater species, too reckless, too young, too insignificant to matter. But that illusion shattered the day the warship appeared. It was not just a vessel, it was a force of nature colossal beyond comprehension, seamless in its construction, no visible weapons, yet entire fleets vanished upon its arrival. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as it moved. It came without warning, appearing on the edge of the Vexen Empire, an area of space heavily fortified with battle stations, orbital cannons, and planetary defense grids. The warship drifted forward, slow, deliberate, almost taunting. It was not cloaked, not hiding its presence, as if daring them to strike yet. No scans could penetrate its hull, no transmissions responded, no energy signatures matched any known technology. It was an anomaly, a nightmare given form. Panic spread through the high command. The Vexen Emperor himself demanded immediate action. Warships mobilized, swarming like an angry hive, positioning themselves to surround the intruder. They hailed it, issued threats, warnings, commands. But the warship remained silent, a void in space that swallowed every demand without a response. Finally, the order was given: fire everything. Lances of plasma beams, of antimatter, nuclear warheads, and weapons forbidden under galactic law, all unleashed in a single moment. The darkness of space was drowned in fire and destruction. The sheer force of the barrage could have shattered a moon, vaporized an unshielded planet. For a brief second, the void itself seemed to collapse under the pressure, and then nothing. The warship still drifted forward, undamaged. The silence that followed was suffocating. No alarms, no impact reports, no damage readings. The warship had not even reacted. It had simply ignored the greatest display of firepower the Empire had ever assembled. For the first time in Vexen history, fear took hold of those who had believed themselves untouchable. The Emperor demanded explanations. Scientists and tacticians scrambled to understand how a vessel of this size could withstand such devastation. But no answer came. Only one truth remained: the warship was unstoppable. It was then that the Vexen Grand Admiral stepped forward, the oldest warrior in the Empire, a legend among his people. He alone did not show fear. He studied the warship, its eerie stillness, its impossible resilience, and he made a choice. Retreating was not an option. Surrender was unthinkable. There was only battle. He ordered his fleet to reposition, focusing all firepower on a single point. If they could not destroy the warship, then they would tear it apart piece by piece. His forces obeyed, unleashing a second wave of destruction. But this time something changed. For the first time, the warship reacted. Its surface rippled, as if reality itself was shifting around it. Then space itself twisted. A gravitational force, unlike anything ever recorded, bent the void as the Vexen fleet was pulled forward, drawn into the warship like debris caught in a black hole. Ships twisted, crushed, folded into impossible angles, their crews screaming in terror. Before they were consumed, within seconds, the mighty fleet was gone. The warship continued its path, undisturbed, its purpose unknown, its power undeniable. The Emperor watched the footage in horror, realizing too late that they had never stood a chance. The warship had not fought back. It had merely absorbed the attack, and in doing so had erased the greatest military force the Empire had ever known. Throughout the galaxy, the news spread rapidly. The warship had destroyed an entire fleet without firing a single shot. Species that had mocked humanity now whispered in fear. Rumors swirled that it was not a ship, but a living entity, a being of pure destruction. The council gathered in secrecy, desperate for a way to contain this impossible threat. But deep down, they all knew the truth. Nothing could stop what was coming. Nothing could stand against a warship beyond imagination. The Galactic Council convened in a state of absolute panic. The destruction of the Vexen Armada had sent shockwaves across the stars. Never before had a fleet of that magnitude been wiped from existence so effortlessly. No distress signals, no survivors, no wreckage, just empty space where hundreds of warships had once stood. The warship was more than a vessel. It was a cosmic force, a nightmare given form, and now it was moving again. Holograms flickered as representatives from the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy appeared around the Grand Chamber. The Zafari, whose empire spanned thousands of worlds, the Korthax, a race of warlords feared for their brutality the Eldari, an ancient species of scholars and strategists, and many more. Each had thought themselves the pinnacle of evolution, each had ruled their own dominions with unquestioned authority. But now, for the first time in recorded history, they were united not in conquest, but in terror. The Emperor of the Vexen, his voice trembling with rage and desperation, slammed his fist onto the table, demanding retribution, demanding answers, demanding something, anything that could explain what they were facing. How had humanity built such a thing? How had a race so young, so reckless, created a warship that defied all logic, all physics, all reason? Scientists analyzed every frame of footage, every energy reading, every possible explanation. And yet none existed. The warship did not function on technology. They understood it did not move like any ship ever seen. It did not fire weapons in any traditional sense. It simply erased what opposed it. A nervous Eldari scientist stepped forward, voice shaking with uncertainty. "There is a pattern," she said, "a trajectory, a purpose. It is not attacking randomly. It is moving with intention, heading toward the core of the Empire." The chamber fell silent. The implications were clear. If the warship reached the core, nothing would stop it. If the warship reached the core, the Empire itself would cease to exist. In desperation, the Council authorized the deployment of the Celestial Guard, an elite force comprised of the most advanced warships the galaxy had ever produced. Thousands of vessels designed for planetary annihilation, equipped with weapons capable of tearing moons apart, bending gravity, distorting time itself. If anything could stop the warship, it was them. They deployed immediately, forming an impenetrable wall between the warship and the Empire, waiting in perfect formation as the void swallowed their last hopes. Then the warship arrived. For a moment, nothing happened. The Celestial Guard stood poised, ready, weapons primed, targeting systems locked. The warship drifted closer, slow, deliberate, as if observing, analyzing, waiting. Then, without warning, space itself shattered. The lead battleships simply vanished, not destroyed, not damaged, just gone, as if they had never existed. The remaining fleet unleashed everything in a synchronized barrage, time distortions, quantum singularities, planet-shattering weaponry, all aimed at a single point, all in perfect unison. The void exploded with power. But when the light faded, the warship remained untouched. Horror swept through the fleet. Commanders shouted orders, pilots screamed in desperation. But none of it mattered. The warship pulsed once. A ripple of unseen energy swept through the battlefield. Ships twisted, contorted their forms, bending in ways that should not have been possible. Metal, flesh, energy, all merging into something grotesque, something unnatural, something wrong. Those who witnessed it, those who survived, would later swear they had glimpsed something beyond comprehension, something that should not exist, something that should never have been awakened. The fleet was gone. The Celestial Guard, the greatest military force in the galaxy, had lasted less than a minute. The council chambers erupted into chaos. Some demanded surrender, others insisted on total war. Some simply sat in silent horror, unable to process what had just happened. But none of it mattered. None of it would change the truth. The warship was still coming, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Then it retaliated, not with visible weapons, not with crude kinetic strikes, but with something beyond understanding. A single pulse rippled through space. The Vexen Armada did not explode, did not burn, did not even shatter. It simply ceased to exist. The Galactic Council watched in horror as one of their greatest fleets was erased, as if it had never been. The message was clear: humanity was no longer prey. In the aftermath of the Celestial Guard's annihilation, the Council scrambled for a response. Fear turned to desperation as every possible strategy was discussed, dissected, discarded. Nothing worked. Conventional weapons had failed. Exotic technologies had been rendered useless. The warship did not operate on principles they understood. It did not follow the rules of engagement. They had built their empires upon it. Was something else, something older, something beyond them. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. Once mighty empires, now fractured under the weight of their own terror. Entire fleets abandoned their posts. Soldiers deserted without orders. Leaders questioned whether survival was even possible if their greatest warships had been wiped from existence in seconds. What hope did they have? Entire civilizations began preparing for the inevitable, some evacuating their homeworlds, others constructing massive planetary shields. None of it would matter. None of it would stop what was coming. The warship moved forward, undeterred, its path unchanging. It did not slow, it did not deviate, it had a purpose, and nothing in the universe could stand against it. Yet still the council refused to accept defeat. One final desperate option remained: a strike team. The best warriors, spies, and scientists from every species would infiltrate the warship, uncover its secrets, destroy it from within. If they could not fight it in open battle, then they would tear it apart from the inside. A ship unlike any other was prepared, the Shadowfang, a prototype built for a single purpose: to slip past any known defenses, coated in phase shielding, undetectable by any standard sensors. Its crew, hand-picked from the deadliest operatives in the galaxy, assassins, engineers, specialists in warfare and sabotage. Their mission was simple: enter the warship, disable its systems, find a weakness, destroy it at any cost. They launched in silence, drifting through the void, their ship barely more than a ghost. As they approached the warship's surface, for the first time they saw it up close, an impossible construct, seamless, shifting its surface, almost organic. Despite its metallic sheen, the hull pulsed with an energy that scanners could not identify, and yet no weapons fired upon them, no shields repelled them. It was as if the warship did not see them, or worse, as if it did not care. The Shadowfang latched onto the warship's exterior, its crew moving quickly, cutting their way inside. What they found defied everything. The interior was not a ship, it was something alive. Walls pulsed with energy, conduits breathed, structures shifted. As if aware of their presence, they pressed forward, weapons drawn, nerves on edge. But the warship remained silent, waiting, watching, allowing them deeper and deeper into its core. Then the doors sealed behind them, the corridors twisted closed, shifting like muscle fibers, constricting, sealing every possible escape route. Shadows moved along the walls, not figures, not machines, but something else, something unseen, but felt. The team leader barked orders: stay together, weapons ready. They pressed forward, deeper into the abyss, following the pulse of energy that seemed to guide them without knowing why. At the center of it all, they found it, the core, not an engine, not a reactor, but something else, a presence, vast beyond comprehension. It did not speak in words, it did not communicate in ways they could understand, but they felt it, watching, listening, waiting. And then the truth struck them with horrifying clarity: the warship had not let them in because it was unaware it had let them in, because it was studying them, learning from them, evolving. And now it was ready to respond. Panic surged through the strike team as the realization set in: they were not infiltrators, they were specimens, test subjects, caught within the belly of something that was not a warship, not a machine, but a living entity, something ancient, something intelligent, something that had allowed them to enter, because it wanted them here, because it was learning from them, because it was evolving. The team leader, a hardened veteran of 1,000 battles, barked orders: weapons up, defensive formation. They had trained for the impossible, but this was beyond even their worst nightmares. The walls around them shifted, pulsing with unnatural rhythm, shapes forming and dissolving, as if the warship itself was breathing. Shadows stretched along the corridors, not cast by light, but moving with intent. And then they heard it, a soundless whisper, not words, not thoughts, but something deeper, something that crawled into their minds and rooted itself into their very being. One of the team members, a Safari operative, known for her unshakable, screamed, clutching her head, falling to her knees, her body convulsed as veins turned black. As something unseen twisted within her, she gasped. Once then was silent, her body standing upright, but no longer hers, her eyes empty, her face blank. She turned slowly to face her former comrades, and then she spoke, but it was not her voice. "You are not the first," it said, "you will not be the last." The team opened fire, plasma rounds ripping through her body, but she did not fall. Her form flickered, as if reality itself struggled to contain her. The walls pulsed in response, absorbing the energy feeding off it. The warship was reacting, it was awake, it was hungry. "Fall back," the leader shouted, "retreat now." But there was nowhere to go. The corridor behind them was gone, replaced by a smooth, endless surface. No doors, no paths, no escape. The warship had sealed them inside, trapping them like insects in amber. The only way was forward, deeper into the core, deeper into whatever horror awaited them. They moved quickly, weapons, ready, fear clawing at their throats, every shadow, every pulse of energy, a potential threat. The whispering never stopped, it grew louder, not words, but thoughts, emotions, memories being pulled from their minds, their fears, their regrets, their pain, laid bare before something that should not exist. Then they saw at the core, vast, pulsing, not metal, not machine, not organic, but something else, something beyond understanding. It was not an engine, it was not a power source, it was alive, it throbbed with an eerie luminescence, shifting colors in impossible patterns. It was not controlling the warship, it was the warship, and it had been waiting for them. The leader raised his weapon, preparing to fire, but he hesitated. Something held him back, something deep, something primal, a feeling that if he pulled the trigger, he would not simply die, he would be unmade, erased from existence, his mind shredded, his soul devoured. One of the team members, a Corthax warrior, known for his brutal efficiency, did not hesitate. He charged forward, blade drawn, ready to strike. But before he could move, an unseen force gripped him, lifted him into the air, his body contorted, twisted, his screams turned to static, his form collapsed inward until he was nothing but dust. The remaining team members stood frozen, horror paralyzing them. This was not war, this was not battle, this was something beyond them, something inevitable. The core pulsed again, and they understood it was never about humanity, never about war, never about conquest. The warship was not just a weapon, it was a harbinger, a force that had existed long before them, and would exist long after. And now it had learned, now it had evolved, and now it was ready to awaken fully. And nothing in the universe could stop what was coming. As the core pulsed with an eerie rhythm, the remaining strike team realized the truth in a way no words could fully capture. It was not a warship, it was not a machine, it was something else, something beyond their understanding, beyond their ability to fight, beyond their ability to escape. They had never been an invading force, they had been an offering, a sacrifice, something to be consumed, studied, assimilated. The team leader gritted his teeth, forcing his mind to focus despite the overwhelming sense of doom gripping his soul. He had fought battles in the void, seen entire planets burned to ash. But this was different. This was a war they had lost before it even began. His hands trembled, but he steadied his weapon, ready to make the last stand, even if it meant nothing, even if he already knew it was futile. "We are leaving," he said, voice sharp, controlled, a command, not a plea. "If this thing wants to study us, we will make sure we give it nothing, burn everything, wipe all data, we take nothing with us, and leave nothing behind. If we die here, we die on our own terms." But the warship had already learned enough. The walls around them began shifting, pulses of energy coursing through the structure like a heartbeat. Shadows moved in the periphery, shapes forming and dissolving like ghosts of forgotten nightmares. The fallen team members, those who had been consumed, now stood again, their faces blank, their bodies intact, but from their eyes held no recognition, no trace of the people they had once been. They spoke in unison, but not with their voices, with something deeper, something that pressed into the minds of those still alive. "You will not leave." The leader fired first, a burst of plasma rounds tearing through the nearest figure. It stumbled, but did not fall, its body knitting itself back together instantly, as if reality itself refused to acknowledge the damage. The others opened fire, weapons flaring, the sound of battle echoing through the warped corridors. But it was meaningless. A warship was not letting them go. One by one the team fell, some torn apart by unseen forces, others simply vanishing into the air, as if they had never existed. Only the leader remained, back against the wall, weapon empty, fists clenched, breath heavy. The core pulsed again, and he felt it reaching for him, something ancient, something endless, something that was not just looking at him, but through him, into him, beyond him. He saw visions, the past, the future, moments that did not belong to him, planets reduced to silence, civilizations erased from history. The warship had done this before, and it would do it again. It was not acting out of hatred, not out of conquest, but something far worse. It was fulfilling a purpose, a cycle older than the stars themselves, and humanity had simply become its latest chapter. But then something changed. A flicker deep within the core, something not part of the warship, something foreign, something human, data patterns, thoughts, memories, traces of those who had been consumed, but had not yet been erased fully. The leader felt it, a presence barely there, fighting against the overwhelming force, trying to hold on to something, anything. He did not understand it, But he knew it was important, knew it was the only thing that mattered. He reached for his last remaining tool, a small neural disruptor, a device meant to overload any digital or biological consciousness. It was not a weapon, it was not meant to destroy, only to sever. He did not hesitate, he activated it. A burst of invisible energy surged outward, the core shuddered, the entire warship trembled, as if struck for the first time since its arrival. It reacted not in control, but in shock. The walls convulsed, the figures flickered, the overwhelming presence withdrew for a fraction of a second, and the leader ran not toward an exit. There was none but deeper toward the core, toward whatever was buried within whatever the warship had consumed, but not yet erased. If there was a chance to stop this nightmare, it was hidden within the very thing that had created it, and he would tear it apart from the inside if he had to. The warship convulsed, as if reality itself was unraveling. The neural disruptor had done something, not an attack, not a weapon, but an interruption, a break in the pattern of its existence. The leader felt at the moment of hesitation the flicker of something human, something not fully erased, something fighting to remain. He ran deeper into the core, ignoring the shifting walls of flickering figures of his fallen team members, the way space twisted around him. The warship was reacting now, struggling against something it did not understand, something it had never encountered before. Resistance, not in the form of weapons or technology, but something far more dangerous, something it could not predict: human will. As he pushed forward, the pulsing energy around him became erratic, less like a heartbeat, and more like a wounded animal, wounded, but not dying, not yet. Ahead of him, the core loomed vast, shifting its colors, twisting in impossible shapes. He could feel it pressing into his mind, pushing past his thoughts, past his memories, searching for something. But now he was searching too. The neural disruptor had done more than sever connections. It had revealed something hidden, something buried within the depths of the warship, something the entity had taken, but had not yet fully consumed. Data, memories, echoes of minds that had been absorbed, but had not yet faded entirely, and somewhere within that mass of lost souls there was a voice. "Help me." It was faint, fragile, but unmistakably human. He forced himself forward, ignoring the warship's attempts to stop him. The walls tightened around him, corridors collapsed, reformed, redirected. But it did not matter. He had no destination, only forward, only deeper. The core pulsed again, and now he could see them, thousands of fragments of consciousness drifting in the energy stream like stars in an endless void. They were not whole, not alive, not dead. They were trapped, caught between what they had been and what the warship was turning them into. "Help me." The voice again, stronger this time, not just one but many, overlapping, merging, struggling to hold on. He did not know what he was doing. He had no plan, no strategy, just instinct, just desperation. He reached for the disruptor, modifying its frequency, forcing it to resonate with the core itself. If he could sever the connection completely, not just interrupt it, but break it, then maybe, just maybe, he could pull them free. The warship screamed, not with sound, but with pure force. Reality buckled around him. The core flared, blinding, shifting, twisting. The fragments of consciousness flickered between existence and oblivion. The warship was fighting back, adapting, repairing, but he was fast at his hands, moved on instinct, guided by something deeper than training, deeper than logic, a survival instinct, not just for himself, but for everyone trapped within. He activated the disruptor again. A surge of energy erupted outward, tearing through the core, severing the last connections, holding the lost minds. Captive, the warship convulsed, the pulsing rhythm collapsing into chaos. For the first time, it was not in control. For the first time, it had lost something it could not recover. The fragments of consciousness coalesced, merging, reforming. The leader felt himself being pulled into the surge, caught between the collapsing core and the escaping minds. He did not fight it, he let go, and everything went white. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer inside the warship. He was drifting in space, surrounded by wreckage, floating among the remains of what had once been an unstoppable force. The warship was gone, not destroyed, but erased the same way it had erased so many others, wiped from existence by its own unraveling. But he was not alone. Around him, escape pods drifted, silent, dark, but intact. The strike team, the lost, the consumed. They were here, alive, somehow freed from whatever prison they had been trapped within. The leader exhaled, his breath shaky, his body weightless. In the endless void, humanity had survived the warship beyond imagination, had fallen, but deep inside, he knew this was not the end. Something that powerful, something that ancient did not simply vanish. Somewhere out there in the depths of the universe, it was still waiting, still watching, still learning. And one day it would return. Floating in the vast silence of space, the leader felt the weight of survival pressing down on him. The warship was gone, erased by its own unraveling, yet the void around him did not feel like victory. It felt like something unfinished, like the calm before an inevitable storm. He turned his gaze to the drifting escape pods, each holding those who had been lost, now returned, their bodies, whole, their minds uncertain they were alive. But he could not shake the feeling that they were not the same. His comm crackled to life, voices coming through fragmented, confused. The surviving operatives were awakening, some gasping in shock, others silent, processing the impossible. No one knew how they had escaped. No one knew what had truly happened. The warship had consumed them, yet here they were, their memories intact, their bodies functioning. But something was different, something had changed. A nearby escape pod opened. The first to emerge was the Zathari operative, the one who had been taken first. She moved slowly, as if testing her own existence. Her eyes scanned the void before locking onto the leader, and for a moment he saw something flicker within them, something deep, something not entirely hers. She spoke, her voice steady but wrong. "We should not be alive." The others began to emerge one by one, each of them looking the same, yet feeling different. The warship had not simply released them, it had touched them, changed them in ways they could not yet comprehend. The leader clenched his fists, pushing the thought away. They were alive, that was all that mattered. But then the silence broke. A pulse rippled through the void, not sound, not light, but something else, something familiar, the remnants of the warship, its presence still lingering, faint but undeniable. The escape pod's instruments flickered, energy signatures shifting, erratic, unstable. The leader felt his heartbeat quicken. The warship was gone, but its shadow remained. "We need to leave now," he ordered, his voice cutting through the confusion. His team responded without hesitation, instincts overriding doubt. They powered up the pod's engines, aligning coordinates for an emergency jump back to the nearest human-controlled sector. But as they prepared to leave, the pulse came again, stronger, closer. The void around them twisted. The stars themselves seemed to ripple like reflections on water. The leader gritted his teeth, gripping the controls tightly. Whatever was happening, it was not over. They had escaped, but something had followed them, something unseen, something waiting. As the escape pods initiated their jump sequences, the leader caught one last glimpse of the empty space where the warship had been. For a moment, just a fraction of a second, he thought he saw something shifting, something forming, something watching. Then they were gone, flung across the galaxy by the burst of energy propelling them to safety. That safety was an illusion, and deep inside he knew it. The warship had been beyond imagination, beyond destruction, beyond understanding. They had stopped it for now, but it had left something behind, something inside them, something growing. And soon they would learn what that truly meant. The escape pods drifted through the void toward human-controlled space, but the leader couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. Even as the stars outside stretched and warped with the jump they had made, the pulse was still there, faint, but growing stronger. It was like a heartbeat beating in time with their own pulses. Something in the distance, something that was waiting for them, something that had followed them through the void and was drawing closer. They made contact with the nearest human station, a remote outpost at the edge of known space, a place built for emergencies, a place no one expected to face a threat like this. The pod stopped silently. The survivors stepped out, disoriented, but alive, their bodies intact, their minds sharp, but still haunted by the echoes of what they had experienced inside the warship. As they made their way into the station's command center, they were met with an eerie silence. The usual bustle of activity was gone, the station's systems flickering in and out of operation, the crew on edge looking for answers. But not finding any, the leader entered the control room, his boots echoing against the metal floor, the others following close behind. The station's commander greeted them, her face pale, her eyes wide with worry. "We've been getting strange readings," she said, "reports of energy fluctuations, anomalies spreading through the outer sectors. Our long-range sensors have detected something massive, something moving at impossible speeds." The leader's heart sank. He knew what it was. He didn't need to hear the words. But the commander spoke anyway, a massive energy signature that matches the warship's profile. It's not the same, but it's close, too close to be a coincidence. The leader turned away, looking out through the station's observation window. His mind, racing the warship, had left a mark, something inside them, something they couldn't see, but could feel, something that had latched onto their very being, and it was still out there, still waiting, still coming. They weren't safe. He looked at his team, each of them carrying the same look of unease. The Zathari operative, the Korthax warrior, the Eldari strategist, all of them had felt it too, the pull, the presence, the thing that had followed them out of the warship and into the void. It was not just a ship, it was something else, something that transcended the limits of the physical world, something that had been watching them, studying them, and now it was coming for them. The commander spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's no way we can outrun it. The jump we made was random. We've been pulled to a sector on the edge of space. There's nothing between us and the anomaly." The leader turned toward her, his eyes hard, his voice steady. "Then we fight." The commander blinked in confusion. "Fight? What do we fight with? How do we stop it?" He didn't have an answer, but they couldn't hide anymore. They couldn't run from what they had unleashed. The warship, the presence that had followed them, had been studying them, had learned from them, and now it was coming for them to finish what it had started. He turned back to his team. They had no choice but to face it. There was no escaping this, no retreating to safety. They had to find a way to stop what had begun, to face whatever monstrous entity had been born from the wreckage of the warship, whatever had evolved from the force that had nearly destroyed the galaxy. But as the first tremors of the incoming threat reached the station's hull, the leader knew that the real fight wasn't just against the warship or whatever had come after it. It was against something far older, far more dangerous, something that had been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself, and that moment had finally come. The station shook with violent tremors. The walls groaned under the weight of an unstoppable force approaching, too fast, too powerful to comprehend. Alarms blared overhead, red lights flashing warning signals, blinking in every corner as the crew scrambled to prepare for the inevitable. The leader stood at the command console, his fingers tracing over the flickering maps of the galaxy, showing the location of the anomaly. The energy readings were off the charts, so massive they threatened to overwhelm the station's sensors. This was not just a ship, it was something else, something far more ancient, something that had never been meant to be unleashed. Humanity had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it was moving toward them with purpose. Every passing second, the leader felt the weight of their actions pressing down harder and harder each moment, leading to an ending they had no control over. He turned to his team, his eyes meeting theirs. They were ready, or as ready as they could be. No one spoke. There were no words left to say, nothing left to do except prepare for the worst. They had been chosen not by chance, but by fate. Their survival had not been a victory, it had been an invitation. The warship had allowed them to escape because it needed them to carry the final message forward. It had evolved, learned, adapted, and now it was bringing that knowledge to bear on the galaxy, and humanity was its final experiment. The station's shields flickered under the intensity of the approaching energy pulse, the anomaly's presence growing stronger with each passing moment. The leader knew they didn't have time to wait for reinforcements. There was no more help coming, no more hope. They were on their own. "We have one chance," he said, his voice cold and resolute. His team gathered around him, ready to do whatever it took. He didn't explain further, he didn't need to. They had all seen the same things inside the warship, the same truth that humanity had been reduced to a pawn in a game far bigger than themselves. But there was one thing the warship hadn't understood, one thing it hadn't anticipated. The leader knew this now with absolute certainty. They were human. And they had something the warship could never understand. They had hope. He made his decision without hesitation. Reaching for the station's emergency comms, he'd broadcasted a message to every ship, every outpost within range. The message was simple but vital. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were not mere prey. They were not helpless. They were a force to be reckoned with. "We fight for our survival." He transmitted the coordinates to the anomaly to every capable ship in range. Every human ally in the galaxy was now on alert. They would not bow to the warship. They would not allow the galaxy to fall under its control. As the final pulse of energy slammed into the station's shields, the leader and his team moved to their designated positions. The countdown to the final conflict began. The void outside turned black with the impending arrival of the entity they had awakened, and humanity stood at the edge of extinction, ready to make its final stand. The leader stood firm as the first shadow of the anomaly broke through the dark sky ahead. It was massive beyond comprehension, its form shifting impossibly, as if the very fabric of space was bending under its weight. But the leader didn't flinch, he didn't retreat. The final moment was here, and humanity would not go down without a fight. The battle for the galaxy had begun.